Hello and welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. My name is Alistair Howard, your host for our AFCON preview podcast series. And today we are looking at the hosts. Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast are coming into this tournament off the back of a very, very good 2023. They've got a lot of weight on them in terms of pressure from the home, but they will also be bringing a brilliant tournament and a fantastic spectacle in terms of the home crowd and support. I cannot wait to be there in Abidjan to watch their opening game against Guinea-Bissau. And joining us to talk about the Elephants and their chances at the tournament is Frédéric Aka. Frédéric, who came on last time back in 2021 to share his thoughts ahead of that AFCON. He's come back to the podcast to tell us why he thinks that this tournament could be the one for Cote d'Ivoire. Freddie, it is great to have you back on the podcast. Two years ago, you came to preview the Cote d'Ivoire coming into a tournament in Cameroon, and now you're previewing a tournament that is being hosted in Cote d'Ivoire. You know, we were saying before, it's been 40 years since the last time that Africa's greatest festival football has been in Cote d'Ivoire. Obviously, 1984 when Cameroon took the prize against Nigeria in the final. How are people feeling ahead of this tournament? What is the mood in the country? How excited are people to have the tournament back on Ivorian soil?
Okay, for all, I would like to greet you for the opportunity you gave to me to speak about this African Cup of Nations. And Ivory Coast is hosting this competition after 40 years ago. The 30 millions of Ivorian are waiting this competition. They are getting ready. Okay, we like football. We are a great nation of football in Africa, and this great event will be to show to all the people from the other country of Africa that they are welcome in our country. We struggle a lot during the before preparing this competition by building new stadiums. Okay. The biggest one is this National Stadium Olympic of Alassane Dramane Ouattara in Guipé. We have the older one, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, in San Pedro, in Korogo, in Bouaké. We have all, and Yamoussoukro, the capital of Cote d'Ivoire, will be this town who will be received all the nation which will take part to this competition. We are ready, okay? We are waiting for all the Africans, for all the foreign people to come to enjoy what Africans share a lot. It's mean football and sport.
Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things about this tournament is originally it was meant to be happening in 2023, but in the summer, and obviously it's been pushed back to January because it's obviously a much better weather conditions, much better situation for it to be hosted in Cote d'Ivoire. But even originally, this tournament was meant to be in 2021, and it got pushed back. Has that been kind of almost like a blessing in disguise for Cote d'Ivoire because you've been able to get all the stadiums and everything ready?
Yes, all the stadiums are ready. We have done new roads. Okay, the hotels have been built by the government of Ivory Coast. We have done what we can. We have done our best, and we think it will be sufficient for all the people who will come to live or to stay in wonderful condition in order to take part of this competition. Okay, we have done so many efforts, okay, by spending so many money in order to be ready. And to speak about the weather, normally June is the month of great, what can I say, rain season. Okay, and we have changed the calendar because of the weather. Now, yesterday I was speaking with my friends. They were telling to me that Freddy, it's still raining in Ivory Coast. It's still raining. We have changed the date of the tournament.
Oh no!
The weather is still rainy. We are still in rainy season. We were simply joking, and I think it's more dry. It's more dry in February and January, more than June. And I think the weather will be wonderful, even if it can be sometimes very hot. For all the players who are playing in Europe, it will be at the beginning really difficult. The populations are moving themselves. They are trying to pay the tickets of the entrance. Okay, I think for one game For example, between Egypt and Ghana, it will be one of the greatest during this tournament. Like Senegal, Cameroon in Yamoussoukro, I think people are really getting ready, and we will be ready for this competition.
And for those of you watching and listening, if you doubt what Freddie is saying about the weather in Cote d'Ivoire, take a look at the video of when Cote d'Ivoire tried to play Mali in that friendly where it had to be cancelled because of the floods and the rain. And, it gives you a bit of a sense of the kind of heavy rainfall that can happen in Cote d'Ivoire. Freddie, we were talking a bit before we kind of started recording. We were talking about how this team coming into the tournament, it's not, it isn't the team that obviously won it in 2015 and the team that was going to finals regularly 2012 and things like that. This isn't a vintage Cote d'Ivoire side with we haven't been able to see the likes of Didier Drogba, Yaya Toure, even the likes of Gervinho since they've retired. What are the expectations of the nation kind of coming into this tournament after a few years that things haven't been quite so good?
Okay, the leaders of the Ivorian Federation were sure that if we join the semi-finals, it will be a great result. Okay, we all know that at this moment we don't have the great team to compare to the team of Nigeria, for example, of Morocco, of Egypt or Algeria. We can say that automatically we are going to fight in order to win the competition. It is a competition, and it's the meeting of the greatest nations of football in Africa. Okay, even if we are hosting this competition, it doesn't mean that we are going to win. When we have all the results, 40 years ago, we were hosting the competition and we fell down at the first round.
The group stage, yeah.
Okay, things can be so many times. How many times the hosting country has won this competition in Black Africa? When I can say never. If you take the example, for example, of Black Star Ghana, of Nigeria, they have organized and they have won. And after, there is no another example in West Africa. Okay, Cote d'Ivoire has done it, Senegal, the same situation, Mali, the same situation. It means we will organize, we will play, we will do our best, but be sure that we're going to win these competitions. We can't say this, really. We can say this. They are too young. They are young players. Okay, the goalkeeper, Fofana Yaya, is a new player. Okay, he has never played in front of a lot of people. It will be for him the first African Cup of Nations. Like the player of Brighton, Adengra, he was injured. Sebastian Haller is injured. We know really that it will be difficult. We are trying to get ready, but I think we are not sure that we are going to play the first games. If we are qualified for the first one and second one, we will see.
And I think that that would be such a shame, because I think particularly Adingra is such a talented player. He's so excited, and obviously Sebastian Aller's kind of joined the team a little older. He hasn't been a part of the team for so long, but he's looked good when he's played for Cote d'Ivoire, and obviously he's been playing very well over the last couple of years for the likes of Ajax and for Dortmund. We're saying that this team isn't the team full of superstars that it was maybe 10 years ago.
Of course.
But I go through the team and I still think that this is a team full of top talent that are going through through playing throughout Europe. But one of the guys I wanted to talk about particularly is one who isn't playing in Europe, and that's Seko Fofana. How
Seko Fofana, yes,
because
he's now in Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. He was at Lens last season.
Lens in France. Yes.
Did brilliantly in Liga, and then obviously had the chance to stay to play in the Champions League, but decided to make that move to Saudi Arabia, and he's been playing well there. And if you doubt his talent, go back and watch that game against the Gambia. That finish, he scores a kind of 30 yard kind of absolute bullet. And and then alongside him, you have Frank Kessié, who's also gone to Saudi Arabia.
Yes, of course.
How important is a player like Fofana in that midfield? Because for me, that's where I see, yes, it's not the best Ivorian team, but when I look at that midfield, you have those two, and say Ibrahim Sangare, even without missing someone like Hamed Traore, this looks like a very, very good midfield. Is that where we see the strength in this Ivorian team?
Yes, with all the midfielders we are speaking about, like Franck Kessié, Fofana Seko, Ibrahim Traore, I think they have the opportunities, okay? But uh, when you take them specifically, they have their own strength, okay? But in a team, what could be the result? To win the African Cup of Nations is to play, I think, 7 games. Okay, 7 games in only 1 month. Do you know that needs so much energy? And if we see the level of the most important players in Saudi Arabia, you can't make a comparison between the level of the leagues in Spain, for example, in France, in England, it's not the same. And I think they have so many experience, of course. They are talented guys, but for me, really, I think this competition comes so early. It comes so early for this national team. They are going to try to do their best, of course. If you know that the last year Franck Kessié was playing in Barcelona, okay, Fofana Seko in French. If we were still there, I could really argue that we had an opportunity to fight against the most important team in Africa. But according to the, what can I say, the level of the championship there, it will not be really interesting for the African, for the Ivorian team. Okay, they will try. They will have supporters. Okay, they will be helped, but the football shows us most of the time the African Cup of Nations is won by teams with more experience.
Yeah, and I think that's very true. This Ivorian team, there aren't loads of players with lots of experience. I'd say, maybe Aurier, Max Gradel, maybe out for Franck Kessié as well. Those are the kind of, but most of them, particularly kind of the young, exciting players, I think of, like a Dingra and players like this aren't super experienced at this level. One thing I wanted to ask you is about the head coach Pierre-Louis Gasset, because
Jean-Louis Gasset.
Jean-Louis
Yes.
Gasset. My friend, as you can see, my French is terrible.
It's not so famous. I understand really your reaction.
But one thing, so I was there at Wembley, in March 2022 when Côte d'Ivoire came to play England in a friendly, and watched as England beat them 3-0. It was incredibly comfortable. I think Aurier got sent off, and it just, Ivory Coast looked like a disjointed team. It didn't feel like anyone knew what they were on the same page. Obviously, that was just after the last AFCON, where you had that very disappointing kind of being knocked out in the round of 16. Obviously, I think by Egypt on penalties, and then obviously weren't able to qualify for the World Cup or even get to the kind of final round of qualifiers. But it seems that things have very much changed since then. The team seems more coherent. It seems like there's more of like it's a proper team rather than just individuals. Has he been a big part of that, Jean-Louis? Has he been what has been his impact on the national team?
Okay, the things with Gasset has changed a little bit. Okay, it was not so well at the beginning. Okay, we have lost against Zambia. Okay, I say 3-0.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we were already qualified. I can try to justify this performance because it was not the party with what can I say, with interest. Okay, now by what they have done during the qualifier of the World Cup, we can say that the competitions and the mentality have changed. Okay, now Gasset is trying to do something, but it is for him the first time to be the coach of one African team. And European realities are different to the African ones. Okay, he's coming to discover something new. It will be for him the first African Cup of Nations. When we take the example, for example, of Ivorian, who has won the African Cup of Nations with Zambia first, okay, against Ivory Coast, and later with Ivory Coast against Ghana, he was the coach, the second coach of Black Star di Ghana with what can I say, Claude Leroy. Do you remember?
Yeah, he was his assistant first. Yeah.
Okay, it's not. He has already his own experience concerning the African football. For Gasset, it is the first step in this continent. We are going to see how he will make it happen. But really, if I'm going to make a bet, to be clear, it will not be Ivory Coast the winner.
Yeah, it's interesting, this idea that you're saying of, that you have to have experience on the continent. It's so important. It's so important to thrive. And, we've seen that across performance, and we're seeing more and more African nations even hiring local coaches, bringing in, coaches from their own country. And the very few kind of European coaches now are ones that have experience. I'm thinking Sebastien de Sabre, Tom Semfiet, Hubert Veloud. They're guys who've been there and done that. Well, yeah, exactly, precisely. But one of the people who's have been the biggest question marks over this Ivorian team, particularly from the media here in the UK where I live, is the exclusion of Wilfried Zaha, and I wanted to ask you about him.
We will never try to understand this. We will never try to understand. The great level of this guy in Galatasaray is one of the top players of the competitions. You can't accept take part to one competition to prefer to go with two strikers who physically has problem. It means Adengra and Sebastien Haller were injured, and to let at home with Zaha because of his behavior. But when I take the example of Paul Gascoigne, it's one of the most talented in England. But the Terry Venables were managing him during the Euro, okay? Even if they have lost on semi-finals against Germany, okay? But the character of one player shouldn't be the break to let him at home. How can you let a striker like Zaha at home and try to win one competition? I will never try to understand this decision of the coach. I will never understand.
Can you tell us a bit more about why he was left out? Because it has to do. I know he struggled with the national team before. He struggled to find his best form, and sometimes he even at one point a couple of years ago requested not to be called up for one international break, and I think it was Patrice Boumel was saying that he was feeling homesick, but it was over some issues of the last World Cup qualifiers, wasn't it? Can you tell us a bit about that and why he wasn't selected and what's gone wrong with him and Gasset?
I think it's really a problem of behavior because the president of the Ivorian Football Federation, Idriss Diallo, during one interview, was telling that if one player must be a problem with the, what can I say, with the unity of the national team, we are not going to put him in the group. And when I have heard this sentence, I automatically said, for Wilfried Zaha, the game is over. The guy didn't start his life in Africa, okay? It's over mentality. It's over way to think, to see life. It's about education. But I think even if he has his own character, but this depends on the psychology of the coach to treat these kinds of cases. We don't have the same behavior because our education are different. Zaha didn't live in Ivory Coast. He has spent all his life in England. He has started to play football with the youngest team of England. And even if he has changed the sport nationality, we need, of course, to understand, to catch really how it works with this guy. We didn't do it. We have taken one decision which can be really a disaster in the future for the national team. I'm not saying that he is the striker who can change the future of this national team during this Africa Cup of Nations, but it's really difficult for me to understand how we can let at home one striker, one forward players like Zaha, and to go there. If it was because of his education or something like that, bad behavior. But we have seen worse than that in the football, but they were playing for the national team.
Definitely, but it is such a shame for to see someone as talented as him not to be able to kind of make it to the tournament. I want to turn and look at the group that you're in now, and turn our attention towards the group that we're in, because obviously the big one is going to be Nigeria. The Super Eagles, and the super they seem like they're a bit of a mess, but they always seem like that. But they have such a talented squad, particularly going forward. And then you've got, Equatorial Guinea, who you obviously played at the last AFCON in the group stage. You know them well. They came second in the group behind you. They, beating Algeria in that group. And Guinea-Bissau, again, one of the smaller nations, but one with a lot of experience at the AFCON now. They were at the previous AFCON. I want to ask, particularly in that Nigeria game, what should we be expecting from the national team? It's not the first game, fortunately. I think it would have been, unfortunately, it would have been brilliant to see that as the opening game. But what are the expectations for that? Are people expecting you to beat Nigeria and to top the group, or what is the sense? Because they are obviously, the other thing I think we haven't really mentioned as well is, and you said it earlier, was they will have a big support as well. It won't just be Ivorians in Cote d'Ivoire. There'll be a lot of Nigerians coming because it is so close, and they'll have a good support. So, what is the feeling there?
Okay, we know the game against Nigeria will really be difficult, and it's not the first time that both teams are going to meet them. Now we have already played against Nigeria in many times. Okay, but it is really difficult to play against them because when you see the team they have on the paper, it can be logical champions, but the reality sometimes on the grass is totally different. Okay, it's good not to start with Nigeria. Okay, we will come playing this game, the second one against them, by knowing that we expect we attend that we are going to win against the first game of the tournament. If we win again, I think it will be against Guinea-Bissau, something like that. Okay, if we win, to play against Nigeria will be really easy. And when we see that we can have other opportunity to be among the first team of each group to be qualified, if our team is not able to pass the first stage, I think why have we organized this competition? We should normally be in the second round, but the difficulties will start there because there you will enter really in the tournament. Okay, it will be to play against teams which has normally high level like Senegal, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, South Africa, Ghana, Cameroon. It will be another part of the game, and let we see if we can be able if we could be able to do it. We never know. That I think normally we will be able to be at the second round.
Yeah, and I think it's
If not, it will be a disaster.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you go on the group stage, particularly with the third place team going through sometimes as well, that would be a disaster. But yeah, like you said, it is. I want to ask this as well as the mentality of the nation and of the team, because obviously you won it in 2015 finally after many years of having such a brilliant team, but since then you got knocked out in the group stage in 2017, and in both 2019. I think 2019 you got to the quarterfinals, in 2021 round of 16.
Yes, yes, in the
Yeah,
quarterfinal against
and
Algeria,
of course,
lost by
yeah,
penalties.
and then of course in the round of 16 last tournament you lose to another North African team, Egypt, on penalties. Is there a sense and in Cote d'Ivoire that of a kind of that they kind of have a bit of a fear of these kind of bigger matches in the knockout gate tournament, like knockout side of the tournament, particularly when it goes to penalties and suddenly the pressure is on? Is there kind of worries of that?
Yes, I think it's problem of mentality. Okay, it's not really easy to play against a team with experiences. The problem of Ivorian players when they meet or when they are playing against a team which tactically respects, okay, the games, we have always problem. We have never won a game against uh, Egypt when it's for qualifier directly. Okay, the same situations appear. Years ago, we have lost the final of 2006. Do you remember? It was during penalty in quarterfinal. 1980, we have lost in Burkina in quarterfinal against Egypt. In Ghana, Kumasi, 2008, 4-1 for Egypt. And imagine which team we had at this time. I think psychologically, they with something failed. Something fails. We are not so strong. We can't sometimes finish correctly the game. And when the event is so important, we don't support the pressure. This is one of the problem of the national team of Cote d'Ivoire.
I think that's going to be something really interesting to see how they manage it this tournament, because of course I think is something so interesting about Cote d'Ivoire is, of course, that brilliant team you had all the way from 2000, 2006, 2008, all the way up to 2015 was so strong. But I would say, if anything, the 2015 team was the one that wasn't as strong. You at that point you didn't have Didier Drogba. You didn't. Kolo and Yaya Toure were still there, but I think particularly Kolo Toure was not the same player as he was in the 2000s. So maybe it's the same sense that actually with this tournament, the team isn't as strong in terms of the players, but maybe that's not an issue. Maybe if they can play as a team, they can go for it.
But
Yeah.
this miracle cannot happen always. But don't forget something. Um, the things which happened in 2015 can be explained. Okay, we had Yaya Toure with more experiences. We had Gervino with more experiences. We have Kolo Toure. We have
Mm.
Tiene Chico. Okay, and with young players like Eric Bailly, who had wonderful level when he
Mm.
was playing for
Yeah.
Espanyol Barcelona. Did you remember? Nobody knows him at the end of the competition, and finally he has finished with very high level. Okay, I think the process of 2015, yes, can be explained because of most of the experiences. Okay, Yaya Toure was there, and it has helped the youngest player to create a group. It means one unity, which has permitted to this team to win against Ghana. And imagine during the penalties, they were really lucky, but because they failed the first second,
Yeah, the first two, right? It was
they failed.
Wilfried Bonny,
How
and I
can?
can't remember who the second
Yes, of
was,
course.
but yeah, I
Imagine.
remember.
I think Ghana didn't manage really against Ivory Coast. Normally, they should
Yeah.
win this competition. They should.
Yeah, I think you're right to point out that was truly miraculous, and then of course Boubacar Bari being the one who saved the penalty and then and
Yeah.
scoring his, which is such a brilliant story. Freddie,
Yes.
it's been a pleasure having you. We finish all our interviews with our guests by doing a quick fire round of questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions about the Ivorian team. So coming into this tournament for you, who is the most important player in this Ivorian team?
Oh, Fofana Seko.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I'm such a big fan. I can't wait for him to stand out this tournament. And for you, who is the one youngster we should all be watching?
We have Laza Amani of Saint Gilloise in Belgium, and if Adengra has a speed recovery, I think it will be one of the most talented during this competition for the national team of Ivory Coast.
You've kind of alluded to it during our conversation, but I need you to now give me a prediction. How far do you think Côte d'Ivoire will go at the AFCON?
Okay, if I was a bookmaker, I will give you 5 teams, and I think the winner could be among them. Morocco first, Egypt second,
Wait.
Senegal third,
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria fourth, and I think Cameroon. No Ivory Coast. I'm not sure that we're going to win.
No Ivory Coast. Okay, so if Ivory Coast won't win, what position will you come? How far do you think Côte d'Ivoire will make it?
But I think it could be for them the quarterfinal.
Quarterfinal. Wow. Okay, Freddie, you don't have much hope for this team. Okay, and then for you at this tournament, who do you think will be the top scorer?
The top scorer.
Scorer, yeah, goal scorer. Which player?
Victor Osimhen.
Victor, yep, is the most popular choice, and for very good reason. He's such a good player. And who do you think will be the player of the tournament, the best player?
Mohamed Salah.
Freddie, thank you so much for joining the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.